there are no perfect churches.
Of course.
And so, yeah, like, I think the important part of the accountability side is that, like, okay, there's an element of just being negative and like gossipy and just trashing, and that's not necessarily good, but there should be an element of like, hey, this isn't right. This needs to be better. Like, you have all these Old Testament prophets who are like, were they griping and negative? Like, yeah, sometimes, but it's for the good of the people and the restoration. So there's an element where like, hey, we need to like address some issues. It's different than just like venting and being negative. Like bringing things up to address them is biblical and helpful. And to what you said about the nice thing, like Jesus wasn't nice, but he was loving. I think at times he was nice. What I think is great is like, and I say this in church a lot, Jesus has the benefit of like an eternity's worth of foreknowledge about every person that he spoke to. So with some people, he was relatively gentle, soft with his words, very approachable. With others, he was very sharp.
Yeah.
When he talks to the Pharisees and things, he's much more sharp, even throws out some insults, throws out some name calling, even calling them a brood of vipers and snakes and predators, essentially. And so what I think is important is like for any Christian, like you need to understand your audience, because our goal is not just okay, like, yeah, we want to be honest and truthful and loving, but like there's an element where we want to be effective communicators.
Yeah.
And so the way I talk to my wife may not be the same way I talk to you.
Right.
It may not be the same way I talk to somebody else. In some situations, I might need to be a lot more gentle in order to be effective. And in other situations, I might need to be a little bit more harsh. And so what I say in church all the time is like, you need to really understand who you're talking to. Don't just pull out your script and say like, okay, here, I'm just going to hit these points and I'm going to say it the way I always say it. It's like, well, you want to be effective though, right? Like Paul says, like, to the Jews, I become like a Jew, and to those without the law, I become as without the law. It's like, what he's saying is like, I'm trying to be relevant to the person that I'm speaking to so that I can be effective. I can win people, that I become all things to all people so that I might win some.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to be effective in the way I communicate. So that's something I think is undervalued. Like just sit and listen to people, understand who they are so that when you communicate with them, like you're connecting. Like there's an actual connection there. I think a lot of Christians, like they either don't know what to say, so they say nothing, or they just have like a script that they go through, and it's like, well, that might be great for one type of person, but like you're really not connecting with this other type of person. So.
How do you think you're going to handle your first big church controversy? I mean, how do you think you're going to do? Because it's not easy.
It's not. And that's what everybody tells me. Like I've seen it in other pastors and leaders, like they have to deal with it. And I haven't been like, I've had a front row seat, but I haven't been like in it.
Yeah.
It is hard. It's really, really hard. It gets ugly. It's very emotionally charged on all parties. And that's why I think like scripture says, like, if you're going to bring like an accusation or you're going to confront someone, it says like, do it with gentleness. I think that also it's for the purpose of like effectiveness. Like if I come at you and I'm just like tearing into you, you're immediately going to become defensive. You're going to put up your guard. You're going to, your inner lawyer is going to come out. And so what I hope I would do is I would approach it with an element of gentleness, not sacrificing like specificity and honesty. I think for a controversy or conflict or anything to be effectively resolved, there needs to be a genuine foundation of like love and care for the person you're talking to.
Yeah.
So like if I'm talking to someone and they think like, you don't really care about me, you don't actually love me, you're after some other goal besides my good, then it's probably not going to be effective.
Right.
But if somebody knows like, listen, I know Dan cares about me, he loves me, then that confrontation will probably go a lot better because they know like at the end of the day, like Dan, even if we don't see eye to eye, I know he wants what's best for me. He's not using me as some like means to an end. So I would hope that, there's a gentleness, there's a genuine foundation of like love and care for somebody as we try to like navigate a conflict. And yeah,
it's not, I mean, you're going to have to, give me a second. Let me try to word this correctly. You're going to have to come into it. Well, first of all, you're expected to love everybody, which is a tough in and of itself. Especially if you have a church of over 10 people.
Yeah.
There's going to be people that you just don't like, and you have a problem with, or maybe you don't have a problem and you just don't like them. But this is why God puts a lot of pressure, and he puts, he puts a lot of pressure on people who are going to lead a church.
Yeah.
You have to rely on the Lord to give you the ability to love these people. Literally, because there's no other way you're going to be able to do it sometimes.
They may not give me a reason to love them, but I still have to do it.
That's the hardest aspect of being a pastor, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I have that.
Yeah. It's hard. And especially in like a conflict scenario where I think the other thing that any mature Christian needs, but especially in a conflict situation, it requires a level of emotional maturity.
Yeah.
Because emotions will be high. For someone in leadership, if there's, somebody is being hurt in the church, like that's going to make you angry or sad or whatever. To have to like confront an abusive person might make you timid and self-conscious. And so it takes a level of emotional maturity. And there may be things said about you or to you or behind your back that are unkind, that are gossipy. And like, you're going to need a tough skin that you don't let that get you to a place where you want to retaliate.
You're going to have to forego that.
Yeah. You're going to have to like take that and just operate at like a level of emotional maturity where you're not going to get pulled into the mud.
Yeah.
You're not going to get angry and nasty or, essentially sin in response to sin. It's like, okay, if someone's going to be evil towards you in this conflict resolution process, you need to go ahead and overcome their evil with good biblically.
Yeah.
And that takes emotional maturity to not let the anger and the jealousy and the self-righteousness take control of your actions.
That's something that we as people don't have the ability to do on our own.